What were your overall thoughts on Super Bowl 55? What are some things you liked, things you thought could have been better? Just overall picture.
I thought it was a great Super Bowl. I think the fact that the National Football League even pulled it off was outstanding. When you look at the game, you got to give kudos to Tampa Bay, Todd Bowles, the whole entire coaching staff of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Bruce Arians to put the staff together the way he did.
Yeah.
It's not seen as normal. You
Yeah.
know, black leadership. You have two women who are on the staff. And I say it's not normal because when you look at most coaching staffs, they don't look like that.
Right.
You know, normal is to have a bunch of Caucasian coaches on your staff. And so it was not normal. I was glad to see Todd Bowles do such a tremendous job. It's obviously watching the game, he made a decision that the ball wasn't going to go over their head,
Right.
and for them to keep them out of the end zone for a whole game.
Yeah.
That So on the other side of that, I feel for Kansas City
Mhm.
because I think it was more of a human element that we were watching
Mhm.
the other day. What I mean by that, I think the situation with his son really
Yeah.
impacted the game.
Yep.
And I don't think people give that enough thought because when you think of Kansas City, that offense didn't look like the Chiefs. The Chiefs have played
Oh.
a different teams,
Mhm.
and they've always been able to adjust. And
Yeah.
last time I checked, Tampa Bay was running a very basic soft cover two.
Mhm.
You have a running back that's averaging almost 7 yards a carry, and you're still throwing the ball all over the yard when we know that they've had to make some decisions from an offensive line standpoint. So
Yeah.
I think there were some things that really played into that a little bit more than we all know.
Right.
But at the same time, you got to give Tampa Bay their credit. They won the game. They're the ones who did what you needed to do to win. They're the champions. I don't have to say much about Tom Brady. If you're playing 10 Super Bowls, you win seven. Are you kidding me?
That's
I mean,
great.
he solidified who he is. He's still the GOAT. He's a tremendous player, tremendous competitor. And I don't think people understand the mindset of those kind of guys because those guys are in love with winning, but
Right.
those guys are in love with the process of
Mhm.
winning. They understand the process, and that's who he is, and that's what he did. So that's what I thought of the game. I thought, you're so used to watching Kansas City show back up,
Right.
and that didn't happen. So it was disappointing. But again, like I say, you got to give that credit to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and it's funny too because I was listening to the commentary during the game, and I can't remember who said it, but they said this felt different once Tampa Bay kind of started to break out and pull a little bit further ahead. At what point in the game did you feel like Tampa Bay has this? Because we've seen the Chiefs before, come back, they're down these huge deficits. At what point in the game did you feel like this has been sealed already for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
There was two big moments for me. It was one right before half, the penalties that
Yeah,
led to Tampa Bay having a chance to score, and then the second half to watch them go down the field and score.
yeah,
You know, so to me, it said this looked different and felt different because it didn't seem like on the other side everybody was playing with the same type of energy that Patrick was.
yeah,
He was leaving everything on the field. I'm not questioning their effort, but you could tell he was trying, and I didn't feel like everybody else. They had that kind of glass-looking stare in
yeah.
their eyes. They were kind of lost because they were in a situation they'd never been in. At
Right.
the end of the day, that's what it was. So again, it was those two moments for me that said this game's going to be different.
It was funny too. You talk about that glassy look they kind of had. I kind of felt like Travis Kelce was a non-factor in the first half at least. But then I looked up later on in the game and said he had like 9 receptions for 117 yards, and it almost didn't feel like it.
No, it didn't because we watch him drop balls that he normally doesn't drop.
Right.
We watch people cover him normally when he doesn't get covered.
Right.
So yeah, at the end there was a lot of garbage yards that were made by a lot of players. But again, you go back and you really look at the game again. The strategy of Tampa Bay to totally change who they were on defense and make
Yeah.
it hey, look, we're not going to let Tyreek Hill just run through the defense and run for touchdowns and 216 yards at halftime. That wasn't going to happen. So that's called strategy. And I thought Todd Bowles did an excellent job.
Yeah, and see, I'm not like super deep into the X's and O's like you are, but what did Tampa Bay do differently this time on defense as opposed to Week 12?
They played a more two high. So they had a real soft cover two with both deep safeties and their corners were playing soft cover too. So they were not going to let the ball go over their head. If they were going to beat them, they were going to have to earn it. And you
Yeah.
could, and like I said, for them to keep them out of the end zone for a whole game, that's got.
That is crazy. And one of the things too, I'm curious about too, is, we've heard people say the Chiefs, like, they're the next dynasty after they won their Super Bowl last year. Would you still say they're a dynasty? Because I mean, you look at the AFC and how much tougher they're getting. Like the Browns, obviously, they're a team on the rise. The Ravens are a couple pieces away. The Bills, and you just look at the AFC. I think feels tougher, or is getting tougher than the NFC. Do you think it's fair to still say the Chiefs are a dynasty with how competitive it's getting on that side?
I think it's fair to say that they're a good football team. You
Yeah.
know, they won a lot of games this year. They won a lot of games over the last 2 years in the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
They have an emerging young player. They have a lot of talent around them. Obviously, I think people see when you lose your top line players, they lost their off. You're a different team.
Right.
You're a truly different team. I think what you said though is so true. In the AFC, there's so many good young quarterbacks.
Mhm.
From Lamar to Josh Allen, to Deshaun Watson. Everybody's hoping that Deshaun Watson get out of the AFC for that particular reason, because there's so many young players who are so good on that side of the division. So I think they would have to really be back in the thick of it again, talking about Kansas City, for people to start saying this is a dynasty.
Yeah.
But today, free agency and those things going to always make it tough. That's going to impact a lot of things moving forward, even for Tampa Bay.
Right. And, I kind of wanted to look at two other teams that you coached and are in the AFC. And I'm kind of curious about the Browns. I was talking to a couple of guys like Dan Lobby and Ellis Williams and looking at the things they need in the draft. And I've heard people, throw out linebackers, edge rushers. What would be the first thing you would get in the draft if you were the Cleveland Browns, or look for?
I think you have to make a decision on defense how you want to play it. Do you want to be a great rush team and have good corners, or do you want to have great cover people that allows the rush to get there? You have one of the premier rushers in Myles Garrett. If you can combine him with someone who's a alpha dog as well, you guys really good on defense. And I don't care if it's a D lineman or a linebacker.
Yeah.
They need somebody who is a game changer on that side of the ball first and foremost. I think they're good enough on offense because their ability to run the football.
Right.
I think they have to make a decision what they're going to do with Odell Beckham. I think that's the biggest offseason move, and I think we all know where that's headed.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, that decision needs to be made, and then they need to build around that, because they have players who are getting a little older, on offense, and they need all the young, fresh legs that they can get. But I think they're a couple players away. I think they're not as far away as most teams. I think there are a couple really solid players, one on defense to add, whether it's a D lineman or a linebacker. And I think, again, you still can't give Baker enough playmakers on offense, that fit who they are. So if they can do that, they'll continue to be good.
And one of the other guys I was curious about, who he hasn't really been much of a factor because of injuries and things like that, is Greedy Williams. I'm wondering, his situation for next year, how does that impact the draft for the Browns?
I think him and Delphic, I think they have two young players back there that one has played for him, the other one hasn't. Mm-hmm. I think drafted them, so I think they put a chip on them, so they feel really good about them. That's why I think they feel good about their secondary. I think their issue is from, the front seven. That's where they want to improve and get better. And if they can do that, which I think they can, they're going to be a team to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, interesting you were talking about the whole piece with OBJ. And I was looking at some of the other younger receivers they have, like Cordero Hodge and Donovan Peoples-Jones, Higgins. What was your take on them this year, kind of stepping up once OBJ was out?
I think you said it. I think their whole offense looked different once OBJ was out. I mean, I keep saying this to people. I think it's so important that people got to understand talent doesn't fit everywhere.
Right.
Because just because a guy's talented doesn't mean it's the right fit. Mm-hmm. We saw Baker Mayfield having to force the ball to OBJ, and I think we all understand why. He's one of the best receivers in the league. But that don't mean that was the best thing for the offense. Right. When he was down, their offense looked totally different. I mean, it looked like wow, where did this come from all of a sudden? Running the ball, throwing the ball, Baker's playing good. Why couldn't they do this when he's there? It goes back to that same thought. talent doesn't fit everywhere. You have a guy who has to have the football,
Mhm.
you know, and because his brand says he has to have the ball.
Yeah.
And I play to that. So you got two alphas. He's an alpha. Baker's an alpha. You got too many alphas. It worked that way. So once he was out of it, then they looked like a really good offensive football team.
And, two more questions I wanted to ask, about the Browns. They were regarding the Chiefs game. Um, there's like one or two plays that really impacted that game where I think it could have honestly gone the other way. What was your takeaway from that Browns Chiefs game?
Oh, absolutely. I think I was surprised that the Browns came out throwing the ball the way they did.
Mhm.
You know, they have they're built to run. Let's
Right.
just be honest. I think people have to understand that two of the best players are in the backfield,
Mhm.
and everything flows off of that. I thought they went around it the other way and they got behind.
Mhm.
And if they would have played to their strategy of to who they are,
Right.
it might have been a different outcome. Truly a different.
Were you surprised by the number of touches Kareem Hunt had? Like, he didn't get his first one till the second half, and he only ended with like 6 total and 32 yards. I was like, that seemed kind of weird.
That's my point.
Yeah.
You got guys that are. You don't have to design something spectacular to get these guys the ball. You got to hand it to them, and so they didn't. And I think when they look back on it, I'm sure they're kicking themselves a little bit, but because you start feeling like you got to score with that team.
Right.
You got to be who you are,
Yeah.
and I that would have been good enough. They beat the Steelers the way they beat the Steelers. They were in that game and had a chance to win it. So I think their confidence is up.
Mhm.
But I think in that moment, they have to understand you got to be the best version of who you are.
Yeah, and it's funny too because my dad and I we've had the discussion, and I think I've heard a lot of people say too that they think the Browns played the Chiefs tougher than anybody in the postseason. Would you agree with that?
I would. I
Okay.
think it was a more competitive game.
Yeah.
Uh, there's no doubt about it. You never felt like they were out of it,
Right.
you know. And obviously they beat them, but at the same time, you felt like, man, the Browns got a chance here.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. Everybody says the Raiders beat them. I know that's the AFC West opponent. Those things happen, but
Mhm.
the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and they're going to be good. And they'll get their linemen back, and they'll have a chip on their shoulder. And this quarterback, he's built that way. So
Absolutely.
he's gonna bounce back.
Definitely. And then just real quick, I wanted to talk to you about your Bengals. I think they're kind of one of the interesting teams too in the offseason. Yeah, besides their O line, kind of beefing them up, what else do you think they're looking for in the draft?
Defense. They they
Defense.
they have to fix the line. I don't. Everybody give them these receivers. They have enough receivers.
Yeah.
Their problem is being able to stop people
Mhm.
consistently in AFC North. I think people got to understand if you can't win in your division,
Mhm.
you can't win.
Yeah.
That starts. So you got to have enough comparable talent to win within your division first and foremost, and then you worry about the rest of the AFC because the AFC North is a very competitive division. So I think if they can first keep Joe Burrow standing, that's the first thing, and they're going to have to adapt some different schemes
Mhm.
because I think the coach there's now a book on him. I think they know who he is from a protection standpoint. That's first and foremost. The best player on the team has got to be able to play 16 to 18 games.
Yeah.
And then on defense, they got to find more rushers. They got to affect the quarterback more than they have. And I think if they can do that, they can return to the middle of the pack in the AFC North. I still think they're ways away
Mhm.
from being very, very competitive, but the quarterback will give them a chance to play better.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question for you. Was the Browns, who they seem pretty established. The Ravens do. Pittsburgh for the most part, but the Bengals. I'm wondering, like, once they get those pieces they need, about where would you rank them within their own division? I guess was what was my next
Yeah,
question.
I still think they're fourth.
Fourth,
I
okay.
look at you look at Cleveland, you look at Baltimore. You just mentioned they'll be the two teams who'll be favored for the division. All depends on what happens with Ben and Pittsburgh. There's a passing of the guard there that's
Yeah,
going to happen at some point in time anyway. Because Ben's going to retire, and
right.
so if you look at that division, the faces of the quarterbacks have all changed.
Yeah,
You Other than Pittsburgh,
right.
so about time for them to make that move
Mhm.
so that they can take their lumps and then bounce back. How fast they want to do that, that's going to be totally up to their organization and coaching staff.
So I was looking at the Bengals schedule too, kind of for next year, and I thought roughly if they get Burrow back, maybe a couple pieces on defense and the O line, like free agency and draft, Do you think they could at least win? Like I said, maybe 6. Do you think
If they
6?
don't, wrong.
You said what?
If they don't, something's wrong.
Something's wrong. Yeah, I was thinking like 6 or 7 might be within reason. I would think.
That's a heck of a season for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's pretty good right after this year.
Yeah, no, that'd be. I mean, that would show improvement. I
Yeah.
mean, to me, the first thing is I'm going to take the quarterback being healthy before whatever the wins are. Be very honest with you, because he is the franchise,
Right.
and he comes back with a clean bill of health and prepared to play. And if they can keep him upright, then I think they got a chance to win those 6 or 7 games you're mentioning.
Okay, cool. And yeah, it was funny too. Last question for you. You were mentioning, the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. I'm looking at the Dwayne Haskins thing. What was your take on that? I was interested on that because I know it's a 1-year deal for him. So I'm kind of wondering, like, what are they trying to do with that?
I think it's a prove it situation. I think when you're a team that has a veteran quarterback and you're not sure exactly how that's going to unfold, and you have a high draft pick that's sitting out there,
Yeah.
has talent. I mean, but again, is he the right fit for the offense and for what they're trying to do? I think they have to determine that. But you're not going to lose anything by taking a chance on this guy. And if you hit, then you hit on something special because you're not paying him that contract.
Right.
So they got a chance to really see who he is, see if he can do it. When you look at their backup quarterbacks, with the exception, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, of Josh Dobbs, they really didn't have any.
Right.
Yeah. So why not? Why would you not take the chance on a former first round pick that you feel that, hey, look, he might bring something to the table here?
Yeah. And Ohio State kind of seems like I'm a fan, but it seems like they kind of have this rep of like the quarterbacks don't really transition well to the NFL. I'm wondering about Haskins. Like, say he does get in for a little bit, plays a couple games. Like, how do you think he really impacts their team that much to where he can get them to those, couple wins maybe?
Well, I think he has enough arm talent.
Okay.
Know what's between the ears. Somewhere there's been a disconnect. Let's just be honest. Hadn't happened, and like you say, when you think of Ohio State quarterbacks, none of them have really gone to the National Football League and lit it up.
Right.
Young kid Fields has probably the best opportunity to dispel that this year, but he came from another school.
Right.
So that's understandable, but at the same time, those quarterbacks haven't played very well. Some of them Haskins was drafted very high, and had leadership position. It didn't work. So hopefully Mike can fix those things.
Yeah.
First and foremost, maybe those personalities meshing will get him where he needs to be. But I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't work. I know that.
Two of the other guys, and I'll let you go after this. Two of the other guys I was interested in, when you look at Ohio State quarterbacks, like I said, not really panning out in the NFL, trying to play other positions. Do you see that as a possibility for these two, meaning Haskins and Fields, or are they just, you think, set on quarterback?
I think Haskins can't play anything else other than quarterback.
Okay.
Fields has a different skill set,
Okay.
But in the National Football League, I think he's a quarterback too.
Okay.
Like the kid Samuel or whoever that kid was that they had a few years back. He wasn't a quarterback; he was a running back. He's now a receiver at the Panthers.
Yeah. Oh, Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are some guys who've made the transition that played at Ohio State and went on. I forget the young man was a quarterback that went to Houston as a receiver.
Was Braxton Miller and because Terrell Pryor and Braxton both did, didn't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
So and he didn't, he hasn't had a great career in the National Football League, but at least he was able to, move from quarterback and go play receiver. So I don't see that skill set in these guys.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. Well, Coach, I appreciate your time as always. And like I said, I love talking to you, love seeing all your stuff. So just keep up the good work and maybe we can chop it up again, next football season or whatever, just depending on your schedule.
You got it, buddy. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much and keep doing your good work.
Okay.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
sir.